Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks. And yes, it's another review. We've done a few of these in the last few days, but there's been a lot of new tanks to look at. So there you go, this is what we're looking at today. The Chieftain Mark 6. Now this is the alternate British Tier 10 Heavy, the original one obviously being the FV215B. Now there's been a lot of fuss about this tank, and there's been a lot of people looking forward to it. And to be honest, after playing it, I can see why. It's a nice vehicle. Now, I haven't played the 215B. I was actually grinding my way up the Conqueror, as you can see there in my list, and I was going to get it, and then they brought out the Chieftain, so I thought I'd go for the Chieftain, and I'm going to grind out and get the 215B, so at some point I can bring you an actual proper comparison video. But we'll have a quick comparison now of the basic numbers, and we'll see why you may want to go for this one over the 215B. Now, let's start with DPM. The Chieftain has a DPM of 2,908 and the 215B is 2,760. Now, a lot of people don't put much stock in the DPM because you would basically have to sit there firing constantly, hitting and penetrating every time to achieve that DPM, and as everybody who plays World of Tanks knows, RNGesus will kick your ass when you least want him to, so chances are you're not going to pen or hit all those shots. So, 120mm gun, just like it is on the FV215B, although when you go into the Tankopedia, I don't know on the website, but in the app it actually says it's 119mm gun, not that it makes much difference. Now, the Chieftain can carry a lot more ammunition at 64 pieces, whereas the 215B is only 35. They both do 400 damage, but the Chieftain has 270 on its standard ammunition, whereas the 215B only has 259. However, the Chieftain only has 310 on its premium ammo. It has two types of APCR, which is, I don't know if that's standard for Tier 10. The only other Tier 10 I had was the Death Star, and I really didn't care for it. But it, like I say, it has two lots of APCR. It has 310 on its premium APCR, and the FV215B gets 326, so it does have slightly more. However, with the HESH rounds that you get with this, you have 140mm of penetration and 515 damage. The 215B has 120 penetration and 515 damage. Now, the FV215B was known as being an accurate tank. In fact, I've heard the term railgun bandied about, and if it's anything like the Conqueror is very accurate. But believe it or not, this has a better accuracy than the 215B and a better aiming time, and the 215B is no slouch at 1.7 seconds, which is a fantastic aiming time, but the Chieftain has it pipped at 1.5, and the accuracy, there's not much in it, but it's still there. 0.32 for the Chieftain, 0.33 for the 215B. Both have fantastic gun depression at -11 degrees, which is absolutely superb. Although slightly less on the gun elevation at only +15 degrees, which means that if your enemy above you, sometimes you may have trouble actually firing up at them. Basic numbers on the turrets: 250 for the Chieftain, 254 for the 215B. This is the front. The sides: 140 for the Chieftain, 152 for the 215B. Now, unfortunately, the Chieftain only has a very poor 30mm on the back of the turret, as opposed to the 102mm. Now, neither one are going to be blocking direct shots, but what that means is that if you're turning your turret and something with a 90mm or higher gun hits the back of your turret at a funny angle, the 215B will more than likely bounce. The Chieftain will more than likely be penetrated due to overmatching. Now remember, overmatching, if the caliber of the gun shooting at you is more than 3 times the thickness, or 3 times or more the thickness, sorry, should I say, of the armour. So for example, a 90mm gun would overmatch 30mm of armour, which means that no matter the angle, it will penetrate. So that could be a slight issue. Now, the turret traverse on the Chieftain is also slower by 4 degrees at 30 degrees a second, whereas the 215B has 34 degrees a second. The Chieftain does have a more reliable engine though, with only a 10% chance of setting on fire, whereas the 215B is quite poor at 20%. The Chieftain does have it beaten at 40 degrees of hull traverse over 38 for the 215B. Now it does have the weaker hull though. I mean the turret, the 4 mil on the front of the turret difference is negligible because the turret is very well angled and it is very, very tough, and if you're using your gun depression coming up over a ridge, I doubt anything's going to get through the front of your turret, to be perfectly honest. I may be wrong. Hull, it does have the weaker hull. 85 on the front as opposed to 152, but the 215B does seem a bit flatter. The angling on this upper plate is absolutely fantastic and can and will bounce tier 10s. Just don't get too close, because if they can shoot down on it at 85mm, they're going to have no trouble penning you. Lower plate can get penned very, very easily. It does have a slight pike nose to it, not the upper plate, the lower, but it's negligible, and it does have a slight reverse slope. Well, I say a slight one, it has a fairly decent reverse slope, but at 85mm you're just going to get penned in it, so you need to try and hide that at all times. Now the side is 51mm, the 215B gets 102. You do have to be a lot more careful side scraping in this than you do in the 215B, and really you need to make the angle as extreme as possible, but then that exposes some of your front of your hull if you're not careful. And again, very poor 25mm on the back, whereas the 215B gets 76, and again not going to be deflecting any direct hits on either of those. However, same sort of deal with the rear of the turret. At 25mm, a 75mm gun could actually overmatch the rear of your tank and penetrate no matter the angle, so that is something you're going to have to be aware of and be careful of. It is faster, 42 kilometers an hour as opposed to the 34, and I think that's about it. I did mention that it's lost 20 meters of view range at 390 as opposed to the FV215B's 410. Signal range is the same at 750 for those people that want to know that. Now let's get into the model viewer and start looking at where the modules are and the armour, and give away some of the secrets if you want to ammo rack one of these. And also we'll go on about the power to weight ratios. I don't have the exact wargaming figure for the 215B, but I have worked it out myself, so I do have something to go on. So let's start off with the engine. So we have 13.73 horsepower per tonne with the 750 horsepower engine, 15 kilometers in reverse, 42 forwards, which I think I've mentioned before. Quite a large engine to hit. There's those strips at the back, upper rear of the hull, which can be hit, and then obviously the engine is the dirty great block just in there at the back, but with only a 10% chance of getting set on fire. You're quite fortunate with that. Now I might be wrong with this, but the 215B has a 950 horsepower engine, that I know for certain. If I've worked out the power to weight ratio correctly, the 215B has a power to weight ratio of 13.57, so this is only slightly faster on the acceleration and the manoeuvrability. Gun where you'd expect it to be on the front. If it ain't, somebody's doing something wrong. Tracks on the side there, and now you'll notice in a minute, you see the middle track wheels? You shoot just above and either in front or behind the strip that would, I'm assuming, is going to be something to do with the suspension of those middle wheels. You will hit the ammo rack. Radio in the back of the turret if you want to try and isolate them from the radio range. I don't know many people that go for that. This is the thing that everybody's wanting, and you'll see what I mean about the ammo rack. Just in front and just behind, or just above those middle wheels, you will more than likely hit the ammo rack. And how very British of it to have not one but two ammo racks in the front, which is why you really need to hide that lower plate. Crew members, same as the Chieftain T95, it is the same hull after all. Driver bang in the middle of the hull, the other three in the top. Commander sits up in the commander's cupola, and obviously loader, gunner. Right, I think that about covers that, so let's have a look at the armour model. And as you can see, the turret is a whole mess of angles and different armour thicknesses, but again, it is very bouncy, especially if you accentuate that angling using some sort of rise in the ground or a ridge line, shooting down on your enemies, something like that. With your -11 gun depression, you don't have any problems. Side skirts do seem to act as a small amount of spaced armour. Engine deck is very weak, but it is, I don't want to say it's smaller than the Conqueror, I think it's just the back of the turret covers it a little bit more, but it's something you're going to have to be very arty conscious in this. If arty hits the side of your tank or that engine deck, chances are they're going to penetrate, because I can't think of many arty you'll be coming up against that doesn't have at least 51mm of penetration on its high explosive. Top of the turret, again, very weak, so you do have to, like I say, arty conscious, play arty safe. Your tracks will act as a certain amount of spaced armour, possibly up to 30mm. I've said before, and I'll say it again, I wish we had some exact figures on this, or even a live model armour viewer where you can see the effective angling on your armour. The inside of the hull and the strips covering where parts of the engine are, 31 to 50mm, again, don't have an exact figure, however it seems to be the darker that shade, the thicker it is, so the inside of the hull seems to be up towards the 50mm, whereas those strips on the side seem to be a bit lower and down towards the 31mm, and also on the back of the turret there on the sides, just at the back, is not particularly thick. 51 to 70mm. Top of the turret, and just in front of where the viewport is, you can see it just there. Now I have been penetrated through that viewport. It was a lucky shot, I think, because it was at range. It's hard to hit, so it's not something you have to worry about particularly, but again, if something's above you, you've got to be careful of that turret. Well, you've got to be careful of the whole top of the turret, to be honest. Now 71 to 90, you've got 85 on the upper plate, but what a slope. I mean, 70 degrees is an auto bounce, and yeah, that's got to be getting on for that. I don't have an exact figure. You do have a slightly bit that's weaker on the hull cheeks, sorry, or sort of further back, just on the side there. So again, that's something to be wary of when side scraping. You may get penned in that point there. And again, this is where we start getting to that whole mess of angles and different armour thicknesses on the top of the turret. Coming forwards again, that's what I'd call the hull cheeks proper, 91 to 120, and again, just on the side of your turret there, which does have a slight angle to it, so if you're up against something that's lower down, you may get some help bouncing if they hit the side of your turret with that upper angle. 121 to 160, you've got the strip at the front just underneath the turret, which I'm assuming would cover possibly the turret ring, and it's towards the back of the upper hull, which is a little bit stronger, which is nice to have that. On the Chieftain T95, I found that if you hit just in front of there, it creates a sort of shot trap effect and fires it up underneath your gun and into your turret. Then you've got 161 to 190. Again, I wish we had some actual accurate armour figures. And as we get further forwards, the turret just gets stronger and stronger until you get to your 250, which is just either side of the gun, and just underneath, which again is where your turret ring would probably be, which I think, to be honest, would help out with the turret not getting jammed from the front. So I've shown you where the modules are, so if you want to take one of these out or set them on fire, you'd have a bit of a job setting it on fire, I think, with that 10%, but at least you now know where the modules are. As for equipment, I have gone for a wet ammo rack because I haven't had my turret popped in this, but I have had my ammo rack damaged a few times, and to be honest, it was my own fault. I was being a little bit careless with my lower plate, so I did get my ammo rack damaged through there. I don't know about the other equipment, to be honest. I mean, 1.5 second aiming time is fantastic. You could put a vertical stabilizer on it just to improve that, and a gun rammer, again, it's got a damn good rate of fire. In fact, that's something that I haven't covered. Its rate of fire is almost medium-like. It's no tier 10 Russian medium, but at 7.27 rounds a minute, that is a fantastic rate of fire for a tier 10 heavy, in my opinion. I could be wrong, and if I am, let me know in the comments. I'm sure you guys will. Now, crew skills. I've stuck the crew from my Centennial in it, and I don't know why I've left pain tolerance on. I probably should have swapped it out for now. But probably a crew similar to what I've got in my Conqueror here. First of all, I worked repairs up and then swapped it out for track mechanic and worked repairs again. I think I then... what did I put on it next? I might have even gone for repairs again, or possibly clutch braking. And I put safe stowage on it as soon as I could because I was absolutely sick and tired of getting ammo racked. So I'd say, yeah, the three things you want to go for first. If you don't want to go for track mechanic, you definitely want repairs. I would say you probably definitely want safe stowage as well, just to eliminate or try and reduce ammo rack damage. And then after that, I don't know, maybe clutch braking or off-road driving just to try and improve your terrain resistances or your traverse speed. But I've got to say, because I've not said it yet, it is a gorgeous looking tank. Right, sorry, you're going to see some very dodgy editing there. I ran out of time. I'm still working on the 15-minute constraint on the PlayStation 4 at the minute. And as I was saying, that big box on the side is no hit zone. It may be hit, may be penetrated, but it is nothing. I'm assuming it's a searchlight. So anyway, I think with the PlayStation telling me that I've run out of time, it's time for me to stop rambling and get into a couple of matches and see how this actually plays. Right, so here we have the first of the games, Tier 10 obviously. It's Erlenberg Blizzard and it's an encounter battle. Now, the next couple of games that I've got to show you, which sort of demonstrate a few aspects of the Chieftain, they're nothing special, they're nothing spectacular. I'm not a Unicum player, I see myself as an average player. And I think they're pretty average games really for a tier 10. I think they're about 4,000, 4,500 damage a game, which isn't anything super special, I don't think. But they do show you some of the aspects of it, and that's why I've used these ones. I have been trying to get excuse me, I have been trying to get a good game on it today. This was supposed to go up yesterday, but I made a very new mistake. I recorded my entire garage review with the option to have sound included in the recording turned off. So when I went to edit it together, I had a very silent but very nice looking garage review, which was rather unfortunate. So anyway, I've had to do it again, and I have spent some time today trying to get some better footage of the Chieftain. But unfortunately, I seem to have been an arty magnet today, and it's very, very susceptible to arty. But you can see I managed to hit that E5 there and penetrate. And he's disappeared, and I'm not going to quite risk the shot because, yeah, he's switched direction, so I'm going to see him hit his lower plate, and I can, and it goes straight through. Anyway, yeah, like I say, I've been a bit of an arty magnet in this today. I've also been doing a few more tests on the Centennial, the Chieftain T95. See that bounced, he was turning his turret at the time. Because one of my subscribers actually asked me if I wouldn't mind doing a test on the machine gun turret on top to see whether, if you're using the full 9 degrees of gun depression, it makes a difference to that machine gun turret weak spot. And what I found was that if you were using the full 9 degrees of gun depression, it helped a little bit. It made it slightly smaller and slightly harder to hit, and the odd shell did bounce off it, but generally if you sat still, it's going to get hit, it's going to get penetrated. So you have to bob backwards and forwards basically to try and keep it moving, keep it hidden, and just keep your fingers crossed that they miss. Anyway, managed to take out, well, I didn't take out the E5, we took out the E5, but I did some damage to him. And as you can see, I'm just working this ridge line. I've got an E100 up there. I took a good bounce off, I think it might have been the Death Star, although I could be wrong. Now, E100, you've got that bar across the top, although when you're closer you can actually put it straight through the front of the turret and penetrate most of the time. I'm pretty sure that's the Death Star across there that I took a bounce from on my upper plate. Something's hit me there. Is that the Conway? But we are struggling a bit on this corner. Well, there's me, there's the M103, and it looks like we've got a tank destroyer just inside the castle there. But we are surrounded on two sides, so the tank destroyer's just gone down. There's a Conqueror. Can I get one into his side? I can. Oh, and the M103's gone, and now I'm on my own, and now I'm in trouble. I need to try and kill this Conway because he's got my flank. And I think this is where I make a questionable decision. The Conway bounces off me, I kill the Conway, and this is where I get the feeling that I should have fallen back and left the Conway and tried to kill him as I was falling back. But I managed to get a hit on the Conqueror, but the E100's making a good push. And try and go for the weak spot on top. And that's when another E5 turns up. And it sounded like he bounced. Conqueror's come around the corner and it just tracks him, typical. And now they're all just forcing their way around. They're trying to mob me, and all I can do is back up. My gun's knocked out. Yeah, and that's the end of it. As soon as they can get to that lower plate of yours, you are in trouble. And that's what it seems to be with the Chieftain, that's what it feels like. But we'll skip to the end. And thanks to the work of the remaining tanks and one of our T110E5s, I think it was, that one actually turned out a victory. But yeah, 4,329 damage done, 3,100 blocked, and 1,200 assisted, and I came second, and I got, yeah, came second. So it's not too bad. It is a very accurate gun, and I think with this, if you miss, it's, yeah, generally down to yourself. So those shots that missed, I'm going to take the blame for that one. Anyway, got another replay coming up for you in just a minute. Right, so here's the second one for you. Tier 10 match again, obviously. Standard battle, El Haloof in the rain. And again, nothing special, just shows a few of the strengths and weaknesses and of the Chieftain, basically. And again, it'll give you an idea of how it handles alongside some of the other tanks, how quick it is. The terrain resistances, while they don't feel particularly bad, they don't feel particularly good either. But that's a minor thing. You know, it's still nippy enough, and it can still catch up with things and, you know, keep up with the fight. That's not a problem. And it does play, to me, I mean, I've not got loads of experience in it, like I say. I unlocked this yesterday at dinner time. So today's Monday, so it would have been Sunday at dinner time. And I've not had a lot of games in it, although I have been playing the Chieftain T95, so it's same hull, manoeuvrability, etc., but different turret and well, 2 tiers lower. But I'd say this is definitely a heavy medium rather than a sort of heavy in the traditional sense like some of the Russian heavies, etc. I mean, the rate of fire on this is fantastic, and it does, I mean, the rate of fire is more like a medium tank, but the accuracy and the aiming time are absolutely superb, like I say. And I think from today and watching some of the other clips that I got where I basically failed in a couple of them quite badly, I think my problem is I've been playing it a bit too aggressively. And I think I've been getting a bit too in there, and with that very weak low, I mean, there's a lot of tanks that have a very weak lower plate, but I think I've been playing just a bit too aggressively in it. But I could be wrong, and hopefully over the next few days I'll bring you some decent footage of it, to be honest. And when I've unlocked the 215B, like I say, I'll do a full comparison video between the two, hopefully with some better footage to show you. But I'm going to start trying to work this ridge line up here. They've pretty much got that corner covered. So I'm going to slap that T57 upside his big fat turret. And let's see if we can't flank around and start putting some shots into those. Although I've got to be careful because there's a heavy just popped up over there. And yeah, T10. And he put some flanking shots into those mediums that went round. Although, after a couple of hits from me, he soon changed his mind and thinks, do you know what, bugger that, I'm going home, I'll leave you to it. And there's no problem penetrating that T10 from this distance. And what's he, 280 metres away, and it was at the front. I mean, admittedly I did have the elevation on him, so that would have helped flatten out his armour. But then I take a hit from across the way, and that's my cue to shift, basically. I've outstayed my welcome up there, so I need to come back around here. Oh, I take a hit from the T110E4, which was not very well received. Let's see if we can finish him off. And of course not, I don't get into his track, and it does nothing. So now I've got the IS-4 around there. And we've got a very, very unfortunate T49 that's been caught out on that corner. That poor guy. I bet he wishes he was anywhere but there. Right, I seem to have lost my support on this side. However, there's only the IS-4 left, and he seems very intent on getting the hell out of there. Although he is doing it by putting his backside to our team, which is a little odd. I mean, obviously he'll get out of there a bit quicker, but, well, I don't think he's going to get out of there. I'd have tried backing up But I think what he's probably done is realised that he'd left it too late before falling back, and all of a sudden he's on his own, all his friends are dead, and he needs to get the hell out of there. Now there's an Object 140, dangerous tier 10 Russian medium over there. I managed to put one through the front, and he was quite angled there. Oh, and then I have an E100 trying to give me a surprise session. No thank you. So I'm going to turn around, and this is where I possibly make a questionable decision. See what you think in the comments. I'd seen on the map that we'd got some enemy tanks about to go into our base, and we've got very little protection back there. So I spin it around and go back, or at least I start to, and then as I'm climbing up this hill I get a little bit distracted, and I see a Death Star coming across, so I think, well, I'll put a shot in. Track him, then he gets joined by Jagdpanzer E100, the dreaded Jägeru, and I basically remember, no, I need to go back to base, I need to try and protect it. Now at this point I realise that they're not capping, they're coming around to flank for a no cap kill all. And it's one of those things, if I'd have carried on with those other guys, would we have taken out the Death Star and the Jägeru? We may have done, we may not have done, but I turned around and came back, and if you see on the map, those guys that went that way got killed. So I start having a duel with this Object 140, and unfortunately I wasn't paying attention to the map, and there's a pattern behind me. And then the other heavy that's left with me, he goes down any second now, although the 140 did bounce off me. Oh no, it was me that goes down, sorry, not the other heavy. I was the heavy that went down. And that's the end of the match for me. But it does show that, I mean, there's not many heavies that you can brawl with a medium and sort of keep up with its manoeuvrability. And if that enemy pattern hadn't been there, who knows, I might have actually come out of that on top. But as it was, unfortunately, I didn't. So I decided to have a look what Artie was doing to see if he's going to go down fighting. What do you guys think? Nope. No, he did a scumbag jump off the cliff into the water. So that was it. Anyway, I would have liked to have brought you something where, you know, I destroyed half the team on my own and came away with 10,000 damage, but unfortunately it didn't happen. Although I did pull out 4,000 damage as sniper medal, but like I said, I think 4,000 is pretty average for a tier 10. Anyway, I hope this has been of some use to you. I know there's a few people wanting to know what the Chieftain's like as opposed to the 215B. So hopefully now you might be able to make up your mind whether you're going to go for the Chieftain or the 215B at tier 10. And over the next week or two I'll bring you a full comparison, like I say, of the two. Anyway, yeah, say it again, I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen, and if you have, don't forget to leave a like or even subscribe. It'll really help the channel out. And I'll be back tomorrow with another video, so as always, take care out there and I will catch you next time. See you later.